Before we start, I just wanted to take a few seconds to say thank you to Amanda, to Larry, and CakeDC team for putting this event together. Because they are always presenting, so nobody's giving them the prop they deserve. So maybe we can give them a little round of applause for organizing this event and putting it all together.
Thank you. But we definitely, well, thank you, but we've said it a million times, we definitely couldn't have done it without Passbowl, especially this year, and I think it's turning out great, and their team has been heavily involved, so thank you all too. Okay, are we ready to begin then? All right, so don't forget, you are able to post your questions in the Slack channel. You can post your comments here on the live stream as well. So we're gonna get started. Remy and I have a few questions. We're gonna kind of go back and forth. We'll open it up to the floor here. I'm gonna go with the first one, but this one is actually specifically for you, Larry. So we're gonna put you on the spot. We kind of want to know, like, what inspired the creation of the whole project, and like, how did the core team come together in the beginning?
Oh, wow.
So kind of, how did you get started? How did the project get started? And then how did you start recruiting, basically?
Well, Michael or Mikael had released like the basic Cake PHP or Cake framework back in 2015. And prior to that, I was working with Post-Nuke. I don't know if anybody knows. What did I say? Okay, 2005, yes. So 2005, he had released it was like in April of 2005. And prior to that, I was working on an open source project, Post-Nuke, that had been forked from some other project that had been forked from another project. And one of the things I was working on that was a model layer, and I know everybody hates the model layer from the original version of Cake PHP, but that was something that I wanted to write something that would, you didn't have to know SQL to work with an application. You basically build it, you get your results and everything. So those ideas is what became the model in Cake PHP itself. So there was Mikael, Brago, and myself were the three founders of Cake PHP. And after that, about 2 or 3 months into the project, Brago went back to school. I don't even know if that was his real name or just his username because we hadn't been in contact. Mikael sent an email to the mailing list and said that he didn't see any future in a project like this, and he felt that it lacked vision, so he was no longer going to work at the project. And then there was a few other people. Who remembers Garrett Jiwoo? Anyone? I know people up here remember him. So Jiwoo and I we'd been talking, and we ended up setting up the software foundation. And then Nate came along. Anyone remember Nate? Yeah. Well, everyone up here is going to remember Nate. So that was part of the original team, and there might be some others that I don't remember. This is 19 years ago. So Felix, Mariano. Mariano, if you're watching this, you need to come back. I haven't seen him in a long time either. But yeah, that was pretty much it. It was just a group of geeks that had a vision. I don't even know if we really had a vision back then. It was just we had a bunch of ideas that turned into a vision that, I'm sitting back there now, I was like super humbled. I was like, oh my gosh, 19 years ago, who would have thought?
Yeah, Larry gets super hyped at these events. This really,
yeah, I love these events too, because I get to come out here and see everybody. And you guys know I'm not much of a talker, so that's probably the last question I'm answering. I'm kidding.
So in 2 years, Cake PHP will be allowed to drink, and
well, it depends on what country.
in the US. So
he's done his research.
So for the other people on the couch, we are very happy to have you in this little therapy session. And not everyone knows you, and so that would be nice if you could all introduce yourself with your name and your handle as well. So because a lot of people will interact with you with your nicknames, so we can put the faces finally on some of these nicknames. So how did you came to work on the Cake PHP project? What get you interested in the first place?
And what year did they get going? Because sorry if I didn't like call you out on the year that you started working on the project.
All right, I'll go. I'm Mark Story. My GitHub handle and IRC handle and everything is Mark Story. It's very creative. I started working on the project in 2007. I was working at a digital agency, and we were getting out of building Flash websites, and we wanted to build like standards compliant HTML stuff because standards compliant was like, that was cool back then. And so we started looking at building like restaurants and condo developments and like small CRM systems. And we're looking at ways to make that better. And so I looked at a bunch of different PHP frameworks. I looked at like Zen framework, and I looked at Symfony 1 and Cake and CodeIgniter, and I was able to get Cake working in an afternoon and gave a demo to my boss, and he's like, "This looks great." And I was like, "Cool, let's go with this." Like,
Thank goodness.
I had no experience really, and so I also saw. I come from a painting background. I was graduated from college in painting, and then found myself doing web design, and I'm like, I have to figure out how to like write software. So I decided I would. Get involved with an open source project, and I picked Cake because I could get it working in a day. And then, I started submitting patches and documentation changes. Documentation changes back then were a Word file. So I worked with the documentation lead at the time. I think his name was John. I'm trying to remember.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, John. So I would send him, he would send me a Word file, I would make changes, I'd send him the Word file back. There's no version control. And then I would send patches to the core, and I sent too many patches, and they gave me commit access. And they're like, this will just be faster. So yeah, that's how I got involved in the project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Michi Hoffmann. I started using Cake in 2015. My first job was at a small agency in Munich, and they've been using Cake already, building like various projects. So this was like right around when Cake 3 came out. And after a while, I kind of got bored at work, so I started looking into Cake itself because I wanted to grow as an engineer. Also like started creating issues, pull requests, changes to docs, stuff like that. And now it's been almost 9 years. Still using it. Still works. Awesome.
Still here presenting. So awesome.
Hi, my name's Jose Diaz-Gonzalez. I am Savant on most places, or just Jose Gonzalez. I started working with Cake in 2007. At the time, I had just finished a role at Sun Microsystems and realized I didn't know how to program really or make anything. So I looked on for frameworks, started with Rails. I had a brand new MacBook. Rails did not install properly. I think it was a Ruby RVM issue. I looked at all of the prominent PHP frameworks. Symfony had a really, really nice tutorial. It took 28 days. And I was on vacation for Christmas break, so I only had 2 weeks. So that was out. Zen framework was very long. There were a couple other frameworks that I just couldn't make heads or tails of. And Cake 1.2 had just come out, and they had a 5-minute tutorial. And I was like, great. 5 minutes is much less time than I have, so let me try that out. It worked around 5 minutes, maybe 10, I don't know. And so after that, I started picking up the framework. Kind of backdoored my way into the core team around 2010, 2011, through the Cake packages / plugin site, which now I think is just, you should go to Packagist instead. And I've contributed stuff that I drop on the core team and then run away from. The queue was probably the most recent one. I'm sorry, Mark.
Hello, I'm Mark Scherer from Berlin, Germany. And my handle is der Euromark. Most people might know me from some of the plugins, like the IDE helper. I joined, well, first I started working with Cake 2000 and maybe 6, 7, trying it out. I had the same issues, I didn't want to do vanilla stuff anymore and having no clue what I'm doing. I wanted to have some kind of guidance, some kind of red line to follow. And all the frameworks didn't work out, couldn't properly run. And Cake was just working out of the box for me. And so I just sticked with it for the time being. Growing more and more into using it, you actually start to provide patches, you start to provide fixes or improvements, documentation changes. And so, yeah, eventually this also led for me to join the core team in probably 2011, I guess. Yeah, and I haven't stopped using it, both professionally and privately. And so I'm kind of in a codependent relationship with it. And so here I am.
Hello.
Talk louder. They're saying they can't hear us.
Oh, okay. So my name is Jorge Gonzalez. My handle, I don't use Twitter much nowadays, but it's usually Stenkel. If you look for me in Slack, you can find me as Stenkel there. I've been using CakePHP from version 1.1 in a small agency that we created in Tenerife, where I live. And then later, several years later, I joined CakeDC and been working with CakePHP fully since then. I still love the framework and work on it every day, more in the client side, because recently, or in the last years, I'm more into management. That means trying to keep the clients and the developer team happy, hopefully at the same time. So, so I'm also running most of the CakePHP training sessions we do through the Cake Software Foundation. So probably if you know me, related with the training activities in the framework. So that's what I do there.
Okay, so now, we've gotten to know you a little bit. So now you guys get to tell us about each other. We want you to share maybe something about one of your fellow core members that most people wouldn't know, but you think that they should know. Anybody got any ideas? A cool fun fact? I knew I could count on you.
So Mark Story, for the longest time, did not have a cell phone. So like we would go to CakeFest and make plans, and you had to be wherever you said you were going to be, because if you weren't, Mark was just going to be there waiting for you. Which made it like very difficult if for whatever reason we decided, oh hey, like the plans blew up to 12 people instead of 6, so we need bigger, like more space. We have to send someone to go fetch Mark Story and like bring him to the new place. My understanding is that he had a desk phone at his previous job, and the only reason he got a cell phone is because he moved companies. And I think at the time he also got a dumb phone. It wasn't even like a smartphone, and that was 2000. No, I think that was 2015. So he like switched to like not a good phone. Now he has a better one. Now it is.
No, I got it in 2017. I still have it.
It's the same phone.
It's the same phone, yeah.
What phone is that?
It's a Samsung S8 from 2017. The battery is popping on it, so I'm just waiting for it to explode, and then it will die. The screen's got burn in. It's great. I love it.
I dislike this man.
Anybody else?
Any other secret facts that we should know about other people in the team?
I have one for Jose. Jose knows where the worst bar in New York is. The
With
Patriot
the worst
Ale
beer.
House.
Yeah.
They've closed.
They closed?
They closed.
Oh no, that's too bad.
I was there when they closed, and it was just as bad as you can expect.
Yeah, it's literally the worst bar in New York.
Patriot beer, was that
The Patriot Ale House in
Patriot
Manhattan.
Ale? Yeah.
It's a terrible bar.
So was there beer?
The beer was, you could get drunk on it. If you drank a pitcher, you would definitely be drunk. Yeah.
If you could drink a picture of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I drank a pitcher. It worked.
One of the other core developers, he's not here, or maybe ex-core, Andy Dawson, I bought him there, and for the longest time, my like memory of him being there was with his child, and that actually wasn't him. It was Juan Basso, if you guys remember him. Juan Basso was the one time bought his kid to this bar, and I remember thinking to myself, this is not a place for a child. Someone else has to have something to say.
I don't know if I've got any like deep dark secrets on anyone in the core. Let's see. Well, is it dark secrets or is it just like light hearts? Okay. No, I feel really close to everybody up here. You know, Mark came in at a time and took over the framework basically in 2008, yeah, so I don't know how he does it. We've always thought he's got a clone somewhere, but the amount of work that he puts into the framework. Jorge, of course, you know, we've worked together at KTC, and he's been very instrumental in the training. The other Mark here, we bump heads once in a while. He likes cake. Ask him for the video of him getting cake in 2016. I know you hate this, don't you?
But he likes to keep reliving it when we bring it up.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for him to, like, I don't know, sneak up on me one day and shove cake from behind into my face.
Do not ruin this event, Cake.
No, I got eyes on the back of my head. I'm watching for you. Yeah. Jose, very humble guy. Jose has been, so, yeah. Yeah, no, no, he is. I actually, a couple years ago, he came to Tennessee. I had dinner with him. It's very, very different than he is in the Slack channel and the old ways that we communicate on the core. And he's one of the newer developers on the team. I've not interacted with you very much since you've been here, but
Larry reset my email account.
yeah,
recently.
I reset his email account. I think that's the only thing that I had done with him. But his trainings are the workshop that he did. This was your second. Was this your second?
Yeah, I did one during COVID, like Tailwind CSS Vue.js.
Okay, yeah. So
Good times.
But like everybody up here, I just appreciate what everybody's done. Again, it's been very humbling for me.
I have one last thing about Mark. So Mark is Canadian, and he's probably one of the nicest persons on GitHub you will ever find. True. But let me tell you, behind closed doors, he sometimes swears.
What? Just get him a response to that.
And one last fact, also about one member that is not here, ADMAT, is that
Is it ADMAT or ADMAT? In my mind, it's ADMAT.
you can also say ADMAT. But yeah, the more interesting fact is that actually none of us have ever seen him, heard him, and we are sometimes not even sure if he's actually human or if he's an advanced AI that came back from the future. And so
Now he's probably watching and he's mad.
We don't even know
Yes.
that it could possibly be somebody here today, and we don't know it.
Could be. So yeah, that's
Right?
he's very instrumental, one of the most important core developers we currently have, and
Yes.
we really want to have him here next year. So we'll see what heaven and earth we have to move for that one.
I try every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try every year. Hopefully we will get him next year. If you're listening, it's 20 years next year. You've got to show up for the event. Please. Yes, please.
Well, for the next series of questions, we wanted to go through, the topic is called Mistakes Were Made. So I want to hear like some crispy stories, but some of the mistakes that were made by the team. So to start with, I've heard like one time the repository was deleted. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, we had moved everything from SVN. What's that?
It was in SVN.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it actually got deleted in SVN. It was. Yeah. It really doesn't matter who did it, but that's probably one of the things that we lost all history prior to that, and we didn't roll it back. What they did, instead of doing a rollback on it in SVN, they just recommitted the directories over top of what was there. So that was probably one mistake that sticks in my mind a lot.
Like you want to know how, like what scope of mistakes? Like this could be a 4-hour talk on on mistakes.
This mic not working. It does.
You can also have this one. This one.
So like mistakes, like what kind of mistakes are we talking about? Like design mistakes, like decision mistakes?
Could be like something you regret or something that you face as a team and you follow through.
Okay, so one of my biggest regrets is the transition between Cake 2 to Cake 3. That was a very hard upgrade. It was not good. And in hindsight, what we were thinking was, we're like, oh, we're going to build something new. We won't have to worry about like cutting over people. We'll figure that out later. And then we never did that. And I think that was a big mistake. I think that caused a lot of like a split in the community and caused people to have some like, I don't know, bad feels towards the framework and towards the maintainers. We were trying to do a good thing, and we just really dropped the ball. We didn't really understand how to do a backwards compatible thing at that point. And I don't think we really understood how hard it was going to be for people to upgrade. Yeah, so I would say that was a mistake. In hindsight, what I would have done is like written the ORM separately and then made it so you could use the 3 ORM in 2 or the 2 ORM in 3, but we didn't do that. So I would say that was a pretty big mistake. Since then, we've tried to do a much better job of like making upgrades easier. And maybe people don't know that we've done all of that, but like we're trying. We're trying not to break everything. So we provided like an upgrade tool now that can do automated code upgrades. So that's kind of a mistake that turned into a good thing, was the 2 to 3 upgrade. Kind of like we built an upgrade tool, but it wasn't very good. And it didn't cover the like hardest part of the upgrade, which was like updating all of your queries. So yeah, mistakes were made. That was a mistake. But it's like 10 years in the past now, so.
Still dwelling.
Not salty at all.
Anybody else?
So when I joined the core team, I was working on this website called Cake Packages, and my idea there was there were 3,000 or 4,000 repositories out there that were in some way related to Cake PHP. Not all plugins, a lot of websites, a lot of little libraries that like weren't in the right format, but I had hoped to like index that and display them to people and have a way for them to like easily install them. So I came up with a format that was based roughly on how Debian packages work, and I started like writing a library that would allow me to like basically porting the solver for dependencies in Debian packaging to PHP. And for anyone who's ever done one of these, it's actually like pretty difficult. It's not like an easy problem. And so the mistake there was doing this on my own, which I had something that was working. It was kind of okay. And at the same time, the PHP community was trying to solve this problem. If you're writing PHP now, you're familiar with Composer. Composer was just starting out. And the big mistake was not me saying, hey, like I'm going to toss this out, or even just like try to bring Composer to the rest of the community. It was continuing on my own path. So like Cake PHP as a community, I think did not really, was it Cake 3 that we started using? Yeah. It took us quite a while. That was 2015, I think.
We had pair packages for a long time.
Yeah.
So we had pair packages, and then we started doing Composer through pair because we didn't know if. Okay, so like when Composer first came out, it was a new shiny thing, and we weren't really sure if it was going to stick or if it was going to just be like a fad that came and disappeared. So we didn't jump onto it right away. Probably a mistake. We had built pair packages for a while, and so that was the distribution tool of choice before Composer kind of took off. And so when Composer was really like fresh and new, we're like, oh, we'll just use our pair package. They had a pair package compatibility layer. So we're just like, oh, we're fine. We got pair packages. And then we didn't evolve quickly enough. That was also the time that like PHP 5.2 to 5.3 was happening, and namespaces were coming out, and like there was a lot of change in the PHP ecosystem at that time. And so I think we were really focused on like trying to finish Cake 3, and we missed a couple opportunities to kind of get more adoption and be involved in the broader community a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of whoever, has an opinion on this one, how do you see, the Cake PHP project as a whole positioned in comparison to other frameworks in PHP or other languages?
I guess I'll take that one. Okay.
Sounds like a Mark.
I don't know if we've ever like Yeah, to Larry's point, I don't know if we've ever really strongly worried about how it's positioned. For me, the way I've always thought about the strengths of Cake is that it's very novice friendly. Like we try and keep the community kind of friendly to novices. We try and make it easy to get going because like you heard earlier, like a bunch of us is like the thing we could get running in 5 or 10 minutes. That's what drew us to it and kept us involved, was like getting results and getting motion, you know, getting something done quickly. So I've always tried to keep that kind of the same. So like it's easy to get going, it's easy to get started. For a long time, Cake was the easiest one. A lot of the other frameworks in the space kind of saw maybe what we were doing and kind of adapted and you know, got better and solved their own kind of usability and developer experience issues. But I think like the thing that kind of sets apart Cake to me is like the focus on you know, code generation, working from a database schema to a working application, and you know, working on like fast prototyping. So like Bake is awesome for prototyping and like figuring out what your model should be and how things should relate, and then giving you tools to like build more powerful applications down the road. I think we have one of the better ORMs available in the PHP space. So I think that's a strength of the frameworks. Like it's approachable and easy to use, but also gives you a lot of power and a lot of flexibility to write expressive queries and like load data incrementally and not overfetch and not get trapped by n+1 queries like after you've written your code. So I feel like that's kind of like what sets the framework apart. It's hard to differentiate yourself from like, here's a URL to run some PHP code to render a template. But I think the difference comes from like the ORM, the community, like what you folks bring to it, and kind of the applications that Cake shows up in is a lot of like internal tools and like interesting stuff. Like it runs a bridge, it runs tire analysis, like it runs spaceship science stuff. Like that's all really cool stuff. Like I think that's what sets the framework apart. Is runs a printing for like the German elections. Like neat stuff.
Yeah, I can maybe just add that the very foundation of it as well was this red line, and that have convention-based approach over configuration. And I think this is still true, and this is one of the powers of it as well, because as a team, especially also if you're new to the team, you can really quickly onboard people. And yeah, you don't have, like other frameworks have 5, 6, 7 ways to write configs. If it's XML, PHP, Neon, YAML, and I probably forget 3 more. And so in Cake, it's just like there's a convention-based approach. You can deviate from it, sure, but in general, you don't have to, and you don't need to. And with this, you're usually quite quick also in really getting stuff done, instead of having to worry about, or like really using mind power to what would be the right of those 10 ways to do this kind of thing. And so, yeah, for me, that's one of the strengths.
I think like a lot of the people here on the core team, whether they're currently on the core team or previously were on the core team, also have experience with a lot of the other frameworks in their day-to-day. So like the Marks, for instance, work at Century or other companies, and will like very often work in other languages and then look at the ideas that are there and bring them into Cake. So if I think like our new, like when we were redesigning the template layer, Jinja from Python was something that like we were actively looking at and saying, this is a pretty neat way to write template code. How do we bring that into Cake PHP? So I think a lot of the stuff that we build, we'll look at other frameworks for inspiration. There's no reason for us to say, hey, like this, we need to like go trailblaze on our own in every single manner, but we'll take the good ideas and bring them in a way that like makes sense for our community and for the applications that we build.
I mean, I also have one thing. I mean, I don't want to compare Cake so much with other PHP frameworks because, I mean, in the end, they mostly do the exact same thing, just call it differently. But what's really shocking if you look outside the PHP world, like server-side JavaScript, stuff like Go, Rust, like the frameworks or libraries, they should better be called, there's nothing in there, right? There's maybe a router, and there it ends. There's no ORM, there's no templating engine, there's no authentication layer, there's nothing. So when you just really look at like how productive I can be with the framework I'm using, I mean, it doesn't really get better than Cake, really. I mean, maybe a bit performance, but who cares?
one thing that I was going to add is I've probably seen people talk about CakePHP is perfect for prototyping. Okay, but if you want to build a enterprise type application, you know, enterprise, right? CakePHP isn't the framework for you. And that's where I disagree, because at CakeDC, I know that we've built enterprise applications. I don't know if you would consider that project that you have for NASA, you consider that enterprise? Yeah, so I think that pretty much, you know, put the nail in the coffin of that one, that you can build enterprise applications with CakePHP.
So Mark, you talked about the importance of the community. So the next set of questions is about the community interactions, and like, what would you say to someone who wants to get started in the CakePHP community? Where to look? What does the core team needs in terms of help from newcomers? How do I get started to help you?
Okay. Easy way to get involved, open issues, help other people who are having trouble. If you know an answer and you're available to help in the support channel, answer questions. That's how I got started. That's how a lot of people got started, I think. Open GitHub issues when you find a bug. Open GitHub issues when you find an error message that doesn't make sense and you're like, I don't even understand what this bullshit is about, and I got to go read their source code. So yeah, like opening issues. If you have a feature you want to see, like, start off with an issue. I wouldn't jump into a pull request, because sometimes, you know, we can give kind of direction if we know what you want to do and how you're trying to solve it and how you're thinking about the problem. Yeah, I think those are kind of good ways to get started. Does that kind of answer the question?
You talked about like how to get started with the code. Are there other things that people could do to help the project?
Yeah, so one thing that we definitely need help with is like telling people about the cool things you've built with Cake. All right, so one of the things we suffer from is we're a bunch of engineers and software people. We're not really good at marketing or telling people about the goodness of the framework or the strengths of the framework. So if you have skills in that area, or you have the ability to do it, or the time, we'd love any help you can provide. Like, I write a blog once a month. I try. Sometimes it's once every 3 months. But if we have more people doing that, it turns into a regular kind of stream of content, which makes it, you know, increases visibility, gives people more resources to find help, more resources to like find out how to do things, how to solve the problems they might have, and just kind of builds that community. If you have experience with video, that's another thing that we're not great at. I find video super time consuming, and I just don't have the motivation for it. So some people do, and if that's your thing, like we could really use help there as well.
Did you talk about documentation?
Yeah, documentation is good too.
Because oftentimes when you actually use the documentation available, which is already quite awesome, you might find something that is missing for you or not clear, and then you can also open an issue or directly fix whatever sentence might be unclear. And this way you can also start contributing just from little snippets to larger chunks, to maybe even code examples that might completely be missing for some reason from the documentation.
Yeah, or if you speak a language that is one of our translations, that you find examples that are out of date, like we love those kinds of updates. And you don't have to know the formatting perfectly. I'm more than happy to help anyone figure out RST, which is a restructured text, which is a formatting tool we use for the docs. The reason we use this esoteric tool is people want PDFs and Windows help files, and it's the only tool chain that will generate all of those from one set of documentation. So we generate the website, the PDFs, the search index, and EPUBs, like an ebook. You can download an ebook of the docs, and a Windows help file, all from the same source code. And if you do send a docs fix, it gets deployed automatically. So once we merge the pull request, everything auto deploys. So your fix will be live in like 40 minutes, which is how long our docs take to build. Yeah, so it's a very fast like feedback cycle. You click edit on GitHub, it opens a pull request. One of us will review it in a day or so, and then it'll get merged and deployed right away. So if you want that like quick win, that's a great way to get started.
Yeah, and there's the ecosystem. So even if you're not directly involved in the core or documentation, maybe you have a plugin that you want to build, or you have something already that is in your application but could be open sourced, could be used by others. And this way, you can just make it a plugin and publish it, add some tests for it, ideally. You can add it to the awesome list. So we have the awesome Cake PHP list that lists all of these ecosystem plugins. And this is also nice to share that with the community. Other people might start be using it. They might contribute to your code, actually. And so this is definitely working for me. And people also help me to improve and further enhance my plugins.
To touch on something that Mark said about like creating plugins and not having to be on the core to do that, that's actually how people get invited to the cores. They've contributed to the project, whether it's documentation, creating a plugin, or pull request. And seeing that type of an effort from people in the community on a regular basis, that's something that gets the attention of the core team, and then they'll reach out and they'll invite you to the core.
That's the process.
Yes.
Enough pull requests, I'm like, I'm tired of merging this person's changes.
And you can always send, like, if you have ideas for the community or things that you want to see, community@cakephp.com or .org, send an email to that, and Amanda will get back to you, and we'll try to implement some of those.
To share all of your cool things you're building. Just
Yes.
let us know.
Yep. We do have on the Cake PHP website a place to put those type of information.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, we're being told to speak louder, so everybody talk a little bit louder. So we talked about improving the community. So if if we can place these things in effect, like where do you see the project going the next 2 years, 3 years? Is there something specifically you're excited about? And I know, like Jorge, you use it daily for clients and stuff. Is there stuff you would like to see? Where do we see it going? Hope it goes in the coming years.
So I'm getting old, which means I hate change. So I really hope that in the core there's not so much change anymore. I think we're pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I think ecosystem around stuff, right? Like at one point we made the authentication plugin, great stuff, super helpful. We brought the queue in, so that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of surface area you can think of. Like I recently had the need for a WebSocket server, and I built one myself a while ago using React PHP, but all of that stuff is now abandoned. Not React PHP, but there was some package I used and it's now abandoned. But yeah, no breaking changes, or not many. I think that's a good direction.
We have a couple of questions in Slack. I know we're running out of time, but I'll try to get a couple in here. Will there be, and these may be quick ones, will there be official support for Redis cluster cache?
As soon as someone sends a pull request that needs Redis cluster cache, there will be Redis cluster cache support.
So send your pull request and absolutely.
I don't use Redis cluster cache in my Cake app, so I'm not going to build the driver. If you use it, I'll help you build the driver. Is
this a threat?
No, it's not a threat. It's not a threat. It's like
you're gonna get a driver.
No, if people need it, I'm happy to help figure out the Cake pieces of it, but the Redis cluster piece, I'm not the expert for PHP and Redis cluster. But I'm happy to help someone. We just have to figure out how to get it to run in CI.
Another question is, there's a lot of islands in the wider PHP community, all the other languages. How can we get people from all of these islands together more often to learn from each other and kind of solve the same type of problems? Any thoughts? I don't know.
I don't know that we necessarily, so CakeFest probably is not the place to bring in other languages, at least, maybe other frameworks in PHP, but I don't know that we'll be trying to pull in other folks here necessarily. I think what I've done in the past is just go to other frameworks, other communities, and directly interact with them. PHP itself, there's a ton of non-framework specific conferences that you can attend, and that's 100% what I recommend. I've been to Southeast PHP, True North, and that sort of thing. There was PHP Tech, etc. And yeah, Confu. But these happen fairly regularly. There's one thing that we've done, I think, pretty poorly is reach out to these other communities on the cake side and just like be a presence at these conferences. We just don't have time. There's a ton of stuff to do in cake world. But by the same token, other frameworks do the same thing. It's not necessarily something that they prioritize to go to every single conference. But if you're there and you're in the area, feel free to like go out and speak at these things. In terms of like what we do to like try to bridge the gap, again, we are looking at other frameworks and other tools, other languages to see what we can bring in feasibly, right? Because there are things that we can't do very easily in PHP as a language that are super easy to do in, say, Golang or Ruby or something like that. But we'll figure out ways that like make sense for Cake and for our users.
Yeah, and you can attend in general meetups. So they are usually smaller than conferences, and they are local. PHP meetups, you can also organize some of them and bring together people from different backgrounds, present different ideas, and then have a chat afterwards.
I think one of the things we've done on like on the technical side is adopted as many of the PSR standards as we can. So we did the logging one, we've done the request and response one, we've done the middleware one, we've done the clock one that was recently came out. It was like 17 or 18. We did a bunch of the cache ones. So like we've tried to make it easy to plug other things into Cake and to make the Cake solutions for caching and for middleware and all of that available for the broader community. Has it worked out? I don't know. But we're trying. Like we're trying to do the things where we can. I think the logging one has worked out pretty well. Package splitting, yeah, we do package splitting now as well. There was a long time when Cake was just the monolithic framework, but you can also just get the database abstraction. You can get just the ORM. You can use just the caching layer. Like there's a bunch of options there for swapping things in and swapping out.
Sphinx as well.
And Sphinx, yeah. I maintain the PHP library for the PHP domain for Sphinx as well. So if you want to use Sphinx to document your PHP projects, I maintain that too.
Anyone from the room?
Yep. Any questions? Oh, go.
Hi again. What do you need to make an event, for example, in France? What are the fixed costs? Are you invited here? Because I like Cake since 2010, I find other developers around me will be okay to use Cake, but they use symphonies and other one. I think we could rally them to Cake. So is there a way to organize such an event?
So I guess it's for the organizer of the CakeFest to explain what's the process behind.
So most of the time we'll talk about it at Cake DC, and then we'll approach the core and let them know where we're wanting to have an event. I don't think we've ever thought about going to France. We've done the UK, Japan, Amsterdam, Spain. Yeah, we were in Madrid. That could be an option. I'm still trying to figure out where I want to do it next year. 20-year anniversary, that's something kind of special. And I'll take input from anybody on where they'd like to see it. And then we'll kind of go from there. But, France, that could be an option. Not next year, but it could be an option soon.
Okay, we have someone watching the stream with a question. It's not specific to CakePHP, but can you suggest an alternative to Gulp to optimize CSS and JS?
Cool.
I mean, the post CSS is pretty good. I would definitely recommend something like Vite because it's been stable. It doesn't change much, and I liked it. I can't recommend Webpack for that reason.
Yeah, there's JavaScript build tools, just tons of them. Every month there's probably a new one. Yeah, Vite is a solid option. Post CSS is a package, or like has an integration with Vite. There's also like PHP based CSS minifiers that you can use. I built a bunch of adapters for them in Asset Compress. So if you're using Gulp and you don't like it anymore, Gulp still works. You can use Grunt. That's still around. Grunt's still around. Yeah, it's still around. There's a lot of tooling options. I think you just have to find one that works for your jam and go with it.
Any last remark or like closing words from the team? How do you want to close that therapy session?
Therapy. I think I probably speak for everyone up here that, you know, we totally appreciate the community. You know, everything that the community's done. You know, 19 years, some of you guys have been around. That's a long time. So.
We know it's reliable.
Yeah.
Good old reliable.
I get.
Well, thank you guys so much. Can we have a round of applause for our core team? Thank you guys.